Hello and welcome to Soul Symbols. My name is Shelley. I'm a writer, an astrologer, and a card reader, and I'd like to welcome you to my channel. Throughout the month of January, I am participating in the 31 Days of Tarot, and what that is it is a video blog sprint that is hosted by a fellow YouTuber named Ethony. And what we do is every day throughout the month of January, tarot and oracle card readers will answer one question related to our craft. Now, today's question is, where is the strangest place that you've read tarot? And please tell us about it. So I did at first, I was like, okay, I have not had any strange places where I've read tarot. The reason being is that I do not do formal readings for clients. I might do that in the future, but as of right now, I just started my YouTube channel in October. Before that, I primarily read only for myself. One of the days in the 31 Days of Tarot, and it's listed under the playlist, I showed my daily ritual. So what that is I do read cards for myself, and that's really how I got into tarot. And I've been reading since I was a teenager, so I understand it very well. I have done readings for friends, but I've never really done a reading that for clients. So the strangest place that I've ever read tarot was this last October of 2019, which is perfect because it falls right into the questions for this sprint. The first week of October is my birthday, so what it was is last year was a very hard year. Again, if you watch some of my other posts, I had a lot of loss. I had lost several members of my family. I had a funeral for a parent. And so I saw that there was this tarot retreat that was coming up the weekend of my birthday. And I really got excited over it, and I thought, okay, it's a little extra money, but it would be a nice escape. It would be a nice escape. Tarot had been a solace for me. It had been a place that I could turn to kind of analyze and kind of get out of my head and deal with the difficult emotions that I was going through. So I went ahead and signed up for the retreat, and it was definitely worth every penny. I've talked, also in this sprint, I've talked a lot about different authors that I'd like to meet. And the retreat was hosted by Diane Wilkes, who was one of the authors I met. She's the author of The Tarot of Jane Austen. But it was also held by another really big tarot author named Kay Grier. And everybody knows Kay Grier's name. She is the co-author of the biography that I have on Pamela Colman Smith. She is a cornerstone in the tarot community, and she was so knowledgeable, and she was there. She taught several of the workshops, and absolutely brilliant. So the retreat was held at this beautiful retreat center in the Blue Ridge Mountains in North Carolina. And it was just absolutely gorgeous. I drove down, and it was right up on a mountaintop. And the first day it was very clear, but we were really high on the mountain. And the first day it was clear, and it was absolutely gorgeous. You could see so far. We were right. The temple was right nestled on the mountain, like right at the apex of the mountain. So you could just have these glorious views. And it was really lovely. I got to see at night, you would see the moon come out, and I saw some of the most beautiful sunsets. The food was all organic and just delicious, and it was just really great. It was really an escape. It was something that I really needed, and I'm so glad that I did it. I stayed off campus. I stayed in just a hotel in town, and honestly, in town they had this great little coffee shop. I had something called a smashing pumpkin latte. It was so good. So I was really spoiled. It was a great trip, and it being October, it was a little bit chilly too. There was one day, I was trying to dress all formal, and there was a few days that I actually had to put socks on, even though I had nothing but dress shoes. So there was one day I wore the socks that I called the Drop a House on Me socks. They're wool and they're striped, and they were just so comfortable. But I'm sorry, long story short, they had little buildings nestled in the side of the mountain, and what was great is, I even joked, it's like there was this stairwell, there was this main meditation temple, and then you would go down the stairs and go to your conference center, and my conference center was kind of I joke, well, it was the second swan to the right, and you just keep going until you reached it, and it was glorious. But it was really a wonderful time. It was very relaxing, and all of the food was, nourishing. And now, I read tarot for other people throughout the conference because the retreat was about analyzing the cards, and all of the teachers, all of the hosts were so knowledgeable. And Kay Grier was so brilliant in the way that we would go through, what we would do is we would read cards using our own decks for other people. And one of the exercises, is a little bit of a basic one that most tarot readers go through, but the way that it was described, the way that we analyzed the cards was it was almost like a college course. It was so lovely. But I paired up with a neighbor, and the other thing is I got to meet such knowledgeable people. It was so wonderful. All of the attendees of this, I made so many good friends, and everybody is just wonderful. It's so brilliant, and have studied tarot for years. So I paired off, and what I'm going to do is now I'm going to talk about one of the epiphanies that I had while I was on the retreat. If you want to end the video here, click off, please feel free to do this. While I was on the retreat, the reason I give you the option to click away is because while I was on the retreat, I had an epiphany about by talking to my partner. So we got paired into partners. We pulled reads for each other, and we were asked as part of the exercise to kind of look at the symbolism and describe the card. And the epiphany, my partner, the person I was working with, pulled the Three of Swords. And the Three of Swords is a notoriously difficult card. It's one of pain, it's one of heartache, it's one of, third-party situations that absolutely, break your heart, right? It's separation, it's a little bit of emotional agony, and, brought about by thought or, thoughtlessness, but for all the definitions, the person I was paired with pulled this card, and while analyzing the card with her, I came to a new realization. And the new realization that I had, I'm going to share with you now. And what it is when you look at the Three of Swords, again, I went with the Morgan Greer deck because the card deck that she pulled her Three of Swords from had it's a very common depiction to see the same thing. This is very similar to the Rider-Waite-Smith. It's the heart pierced by three swords with clouds that are raining. Now, the one thing was my partner had a different deck, but she had the deck that showed droplets of blood coming out from underneath the heart. So again, if this seems like more of a sad reading, you don't have to watch this part, but this is what we talked about. This is what in the enlightenment I got on the retreat. And what it was is that we had a little bit of a stumped time. The Three of Swords is a classic card. We see it all the time. Most of the time we just kind of flinch, cringe, and go, okay, how can we clarify, right? Most of the time we want to get past the Three of Swords. We want to know how to deal with the Three of Swords. No one likes to have to analyze it because it's a sad card. So, but what we did is we were both kind of stumped. We were given this assignment that, okay, look at the symbolism. And we're like, okay, symbolism is pain. Pain. But what happened was my partner looked at it and goes, well, it is what it is. It's a heart. It's a bright red heart. It's vital. And it's dripping blood. And it was almost like like the lightning bolt on the tower. My brain just went to that and goes, it's a red heart. This is not dried blood. This is fresh blood. This is fresh blood. That means that heart is still beating, right? And I never noticed that before until my partner said it. Now, what brought on this epiphany, I'm going to share one side story and then we'll get right back to the description. I'm a big fan of the show Mysteries at the Museum. It kind of shows an object and then it gives a story about what that object, the story behind the object. There's a story about the turn of the century where there was a worker who was installing either like a railroad track. You know how you have those long nails that go into a railroad? Either that or it was a pole. It was some kind of pole. It was some kind of, lance type object that this worker was installing. And there was an accident, and he accidentally misses, and the object that he's using accidentally ends up impaling him in the head. It gets launched towards his head, and it goes right through his brain. And the crazy thing is that he goes to the doctor, and the doctor, if they do x-ray or they analyze it and they look at it, and then later on, he's a subject of a lot of medical study, but what happened was it did go through his brain, and it affected the parts that were affected, that were hit by the object. But what they realized is that if they pulled the pole out, if they pulled the nail out, it would kill him. It would kill him. But if they left it in, he would have to live with it. And he had impaired motor function. There were definitely things that he could not do after the accident, but he was still able to live. And he did. He lived, I think, a fairly long time after that. I think like 15 to 20 years, which by, today's idea, you would think after an accident that bad, you wouldn't give anybody that length of time, right? So what I thought, that story popped into my head. This heart is living. This heart is still alive. It's beating. It's beating. It's red. This is not dried blood. This is not a dead heart. This is a live heart, and it has 3 swords in it. And what dawned on me is that what if the 3 of swords is a situation like the pole through the guy's head, through his brain? What if you pull out one of those swords and it kills the heart? But if you leave the swords in, it causes affliction, it causes pain, it's sustaining. The heart is alive, but impaired and hindered and hurting, right? And that just made me think, oh God, that could be a 3 of swords situation. What if someone's afraid to pull a sword out? What if someone feels like they have to pull out all 3 swords at once, right? And then the 4 of swords, the next card, you see someone laying and they look like they're almost dead in a mausoleum. But what I'm thinking, and again, the epiphany, and this was while I was on a retreat. This was while I was on a misty mountaintop, talking with someone and pulling cards for someone else, in person, which I had never really done before. It had all been video or for myself. And wow, guys, my brain, my mind, was like mind blown. I was absolutely, because that's what, and now when I pull this card, that's what I think of. I think of, okay, what situation in your life is the man with the pole through his head, And do you want to continue to live with 3 swords in your heart? Do you want to continue to live with a stake through your brain? Is that the kind of situation that you want to remain in? Just in order to keep the heart beating, even though it's impaired and hurting and in pain and not, it's not a thriving heart. It's a hindered heart. And it looks like there's 3 opinions, 3 thoughts, 3 brains in this. So it did. It made me think, okay, what if you pull one of the swords out and make it 2? Or what if you pull all 3 of the swords out? And, it really got me thinking. There's another tarot deck that's called the before and after tarot, and in the after tarot, it shows a heart that's all bandaged up. And that kind of makes me think about that. But again, that kind of makes me think of the best case scenario where you could actually pull all the swords out and heal. But, you know, again, but I know that was a little bit more of a turn, but those were the kind of deep insights that I gleaned. There were definitely a lot of other reads that were just really wonderful, really sunny, and I learned so much. But I did want to touch on that because that really was one of the realizations that I had, and that was one of the not strangest places I've ever read tarot, but it was one of the most beautiful, majestic, and educational ones. So, well, I thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you had a good time. Now, I am going to be continuing. We're almost done. We're in the home stretch of the 31 days of tarot. And tomorrow, the question, day 28, is have you ever turned a tarot non-believer into a believer? Now, again, as I've stated at the beginning of this video, I've never read for other people as clients. I've done it through video, and I've read for myself a lot, and for friends. So in this situation, I am going to replace the question, but I am going to replace it again with another question from last year's 31 Days of Tarot. And I'm going to make the question, have you ever dealt with imposter syndrome? So that's going to be a fun one. That's going to be one that is real. The struggle is real. So I hope you can join me for that. And thank you so much for stopping by. And I'll see you later. Bye.